How's it going, guys? Aura here, coming at you live with another video, and today we are going to be painting this Catapult from Battletech. Been wanting to go ahead and get you guys a painting video out for a while. You know, been big hobby of mine, so I figured I'd go ahead and give it a shot for you guys. But yeah, today we're going to be walking you through the process of how I paint this figure, how I get into it, and all that good stuff. But I guess starting off, we should probably start off with what's a Battletech. Now, to the best of my understanding, Battletech is a tabletop RPG war tabletop game that a lot of people used to play way back in the day. It hit a bit of a dark age, but then had a resurgence as of recently. And think your typical like Warhammer 40K style game, but less focus on big armies and more focus on big robots or mechs. The big thing that I like about Battletech is that it takes place in the far distant future, and you can pretty much play in any timeline that you see fit. As for showing an example here up ahead, here's a map of the Battletech inner sphere. So as you can see here, here's a map of the inner sphere in the year 3058. All of those tiny little white dots that you see me pointing to here are all different locations all over the map, and this all encompasses one big area of where the main story takes place. However, as you'll see here soon, I flip over the map, and it'll show you a jump about 100 years into the future, 3151, and here the clans start coming in and taking over more parts of the inner sphere. So the beauty of Battletech is that the universe is huge. There's plenty of people you can base your paint schemes off of. You could go with mercenary companies living on the outside, which is what I chose to do in this video. But you really just have options for almost anything you want. Now that we've gone in a little bit into the universe in which that we're painting our figure in, let's go into the materials that we'll be using to go ahead and paint. So starting off first, I have my trusty wet palette. Anybody who paints minis knows how important a wet palette is. You can make your own if you don't have one. It's very easy. We have our brushes. I have two sets of brushes, paint brushes and makeup brushes. I will explain the purpose of the makeup brushes here soon. I have some paper towel to, wipe excess paint off of my brush and such. A cup of water to, rinse my brushes off in between paints. We also have our basing materials for when we go to work on the base of our model. That way it's not just painted base, as well as the basing glue for said basing materials. And obviously it wouldn't be a painting video without the paints. So over here is all of the colors that I will be using for this video, and I will be going over each one as we go through it. But here we are, and let's get right into the painting. Alright, so starting right off, looking at this figure, I already know that I'm going for a split design, which means I'm going to probably start with putting a line straight down the middle of the first color that I plan on going with, and then filling it in along the side there, as well as basically the whole right side is going to be one color, the whole left side is going to be another color. An important thing with Battletech mechs is to point out where your windows are at, which is where I'm pointing to here, these tiny little indents that are in the mech here. They are going to end up being a different color than everything else, so I'm going to do my best not to get any paint on them during the painting of the regular body. But mainly right now, we're taking a good look at everything, figuring out where we're going to put our paint, how we plan on doing it, and all that good stuff. So basically, right now, I'm going through mentally mapping out everything that I want to paint certain ways, looking at the smaller details, figuring out what colors they're going to be, what I'm going to have to paint them as. There's all these different layers and such that kind of go into my thought process when putting together the model. Well, putting it together in my head on how I want to see it look at the end. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, basically going through and figuring all of that out for myself before I even decide, hey, let's get some color on there, let's get it going, let's figure out what we're going to be doing with the model. which is exactly what we're going into right now. Okay, so we're going to get right into it, starting off with our first color, Corn Red from Citadel. So what you'll see me do here is I'm going to put the paint down, kind of dry my brush off a little bit, because I may have attempted this beforehand. Go ahead and add some to my wet palette. That way the paint doesn't dry up. Get a little bit of excess off of my brush, and I'm going to slowly start putting on the very first line. Now, you guys are going to have to bear with me here. Sometimes the camera's going to go out of focus. Sometimes it's going to go back in focus. But slowly but surely, I'm going to start putting on my main paint line. Alright, so as you see here, I now have the main line going around the body to go ahead and section off the side that I want to go ahead and paint. As you can see, I kind of mispainted a part down there, but that's fine. We can cover it up later. And now we're going to slowly but surely start working on the right side, getting it covered with our first thin coat of paint. Alright, so this is going to probably be the longest part of the video, but you'll see me, kind of cleaning my brush off as I'm preparing to go ahead and switch brushes, because the thin brush that I used is very small and is really good for doing lines, but when it comes to actually like fully painting the body, I prefer to use a different brush. And actually, funny enough, the brush that I use in this part for the red, I actually use a bigger brush to do the opposite side, because this side actually took so long with this brush. But the real simple part is basically everything to the right of that line that I went ahead and started is going to be base coated in that same red color. So sit back, relax, and watch as we slowly get this painted. Alright, and here we go, just putting on the last couple finishing touches on the red. If you guys are enjoying the video so far, please feel free to hit that like button down below, as well as the subscribe button. But yeah, as you can see, we've gotten the whole right side painted in our first coat of red. And just doing a quick overview to make sure I didn't miss anything. But once we get done with this first thin coat of red, we are immediately going to go into our next thin coat, which is going to be purple on the left side. Getting right into our next color, we have a Xerxes purple, Xerxes purple. I'm terrible with names, but it is a darker purple that I like to use for my custom mech company, which, fun fact, is called the Jester's Omen. If you guys have any questions about them, feel free to ask me down in the comments, and I will do my best to give you as much information as I've come up with on their lore. But just like the same thing with the red, I'm going to take some from my brush, put it over on the wet palette, maybe grab just a little bit more, because the one particular spot on the wet palette is pretty damp, so I just want to make sure that I have enough paint to work with. And we are going to start applying the purple on the opposite side. Alright, and we are just about finished up with the purple here. You're just going to see me go through and do these last couple of touches. So basically the next step after we do this is to let these two coats dry and then basically go over them again with the same exact colors. So basically we're going to redo what we just did for the red and the purple, but basically just do them right over top of each other again. Okay, so I went ahead off camera and went ahead and did the second layer. As you can see, the paint's more full and all that good stuff. So now what we're going to start doing is painting all of the bits that need to be black. So that is going to cover like the missile pods, our windows, and our tiny guns basically. And for that, I left the color in the box at the time, so I'm currently grabbing it off camera. But in just a second, there we go, Corvus black. That is the black that I like to use for, you know, just whether it go on guns, panels, glass. I always like to go with a nice, decent black to start off. And that's just so when I go ahead and put the metallics on there, they show up a lot better than they would if they showed up on the white spray prime that we did. So, as you can see here, we finished up putting all the little black on there that we needed to do, and following up with the black, now that we have that done, we are going to do my favorite part of the whole process, in my opinion, which is going to be putting a full wash over the entire thing. And what that'll do is it'll help get into the recesses and make those little lines pop a little bit better. Alright, as previously stated, we are now going to move into our wash. For this I use a larger brush, and basically what a wash is you can make your own, you can buy your own. Some people call them shades, some people call them glosses. What basically their whole point is it's a very, very watered down paint that's made to run into the recesses and tiny details. So for my mech, I'm using a regular Nuln oil, not glossy Nuln oil, but a regular one. And what you'll notice is when I open this container, you'll see how runny the paint is. It's almost like water. And essentially what we do is we want to slather our brush in it, and just slap it all over the model, preventing it from pulling up a lot, but we want it to get into those recesses and dry. And basically what that'll do is it'll make all those little panels and all the little in-between bits between them stick out a lot better. right, and as you can see, we now have that on there. All of the little bits are now brighter and darkened, mainly those vents, those little crevices, those little gaps, all those individual itty-bitty bits. But now that the whole model is a little bit darker, we're actually going to come in with brighter colors and do what's called dry brushing to bring up some of the color. So, as mentioned before, we just went ahead and everything is now dark. Everything is darker, it has a bit of a sheen to it, and we want to go ahead and bring back some of that color. So, here are the two base colors that we started with, and those are what are currently on the model. What we're going to do now is take some that are slightly lighter in pigment, such as this red and this purple here. My container's a little dirty, ignore the yellow on the bottom of it, some paint spilled. But we're going to take those and do what's called dry brushing them on. And that's where the makeup brushes come in. Now the beauty of dry brushing is you take very, very little paint, put it on your brush, and then wipe it off till you have basically nothing left on there. And then what you do is rub that against the raised surfaces of the model so that the paint only sticks to the higher edges, and in doing so it is going to naturally bring up some of that color that we got rid of with our shade. So we're going to start off with our red first and then go into our purple. Okay, so as you can see now, the purple is brighter, the red is brighter, everything just looks a lot nicer now that we've brought up the colors a bit, and it was very simple with just that easy trick of dry brushing. So now that we've done that, we're going to start moving into our metallics. Okay, big thing that I always say when you're using metallics, after you use metallics, make sure that you change out your paint water, because there is going to be glitter in the metallics and that can mix in with your regular paint and, you know, make your paint sparkly when it's not supposed to be. So starting off, first we are going to be doing our gold details, and that is solely for the windows. So we are going to be using our Liberator Gold here. It is a nice solid layer, and the important thing with metallics to remember is it's okay if you get a little overspill, because you can always go back and fill in the area with some of that dry brushed color that we used, just plain off the brush. real quick here, we're switching over to our silver metallic, which is going on our guns and on our missile pods. Alright, we're getting really close to the end now, so what we're going to do now is we're going to take this moot green and we're going to put it on the top of the base to go underneath of our basing material. That way that the white doesn't peek through, and it's going to be a green on green type thing. Alright, so we're now on to the last couple of steps. So we're going to be using all of this stuff here, this Army Painter Battlefield Grass, these Army Painter Tufts, as well as the Army Painter Basing Glue to go ahead and get some texture going on with our miniature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put some into my paper towel here, and you're going to see me grab a old paintbrush that I no longer use. And basically I'm going to paint the base, not the rim, but the top part that's underneath of the model. We're going to paint that with glue and put this battlefield grass on top of it. And while we do that, we're also going to take some time to pull out and put some individual tufts of grass in there to add some even, another layer of texture to the whole thing.
Under the sun, we feel the beat, dancing through life on our feet. No worries, no regrets in sight. We're living loud, chasing the light. We're living wild, feeling free. No holding back, it's our destiny. With every breath, we take it all.
Alright, so now that we've gotten that on there, the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to grab our Corvus Black, and come around the base rim just a wee bit after we clean up. You know, cleaning up's important. You don't want all your stuff everywhere. But we're going to come in with the same black that we used for our windows and guns. And we are going to go ahead and paint the base rim now, covering up any of that green that got in the way or anything like that. That way, to just also kind of clean up the model, because when you originally get them, the bases are black. So this just kind of helps bring it back to that natural look. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between, here we are at the final product. I haven't done one of these in so long, and it feels so good to get another model knocked out, painted up, and make a video on it. It just feels great. I hope you guys enjoyed the entire process. If you have any questions for me, feel free to ask me down in the comments. Feel free to check the channel description to join my Discord, where you will get notified of all the uploads. And if you want to just talk to me more directly, that's where I'll be. But with that, we're just going to take one last good look at the guy here. And yeah, thank you all so much for watching. And I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out.